Hey guys, it's Margaret. Today I have a really fun video to show you guys that I hope will be super helpful. I am not a professional calligrapher, as you've probably seen from my previous videos. I use what is called faux calligraphy, or at least that's what I call it. I've watched a lot of YouTubers' calligraphy videos, and I've noticed that most of them use very expensive pens to do their calligraphy, or they need more than one to do it. I only use one pen, and I use it for almost all of my calligraphy, my faux calligraphy. And I want to show you guys how to do that yourselves. Before I spill all the deets on my secret calligraphy techniques, make sure to subscribe to 17's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of our future bullet journaling tips and tricks. All right, let's get started. The first thing I want to show you guys is just a comparison of all of the different markers out there that you can use for your own faux calligraphy, and then point out the ones that I like the best. You can definitely shell out a huge amount of money trying to make your calligraphy look like a professional calligrapher's, but I'm here to tell you that you do not need to do that. There's several pens just like the Crayola Super Tip that are less expensive and will give you the same exact effect as a professional calligrapher. The nib of the Crayola Super Tip is pretty stiff, so it's not gonna allow for a wide range in stroke width. So this will be good for faux calligraphy, but if you are a more advanced calligrapher, this is probably not gonna be great for real professional calligraphy. The Micron pen is probably the most stiff of all of the pens that I will show you today. It only really allows for one stroke width, but I will show you how to use it to make faux calligraphy. The Tombow brush pen is going to allow for the widest range in stroke width because the nib of the Tombow brush pen is very, very loose, so it's going to allow you to make very thin and very thick strokes. The Faber-Castell pen that I'm using here is a 1.5 size, and it's along the same lines as the Micron pen in that it really only allows for one stroke width. Full disclosure, I do not know how to pronounce this last pen, so I'm gonna do my best, but I will probably botch it. This is the Fudenosuke pen. Fudenosuke? Is that how you actually say it? Fudenosuke. This last pen is the Fudenosuke pen. That was probably wrong. And it is what most calligraphers use for all of their professional calligraphy, but I will also show you how to use it to make faux calligraphy. As you can see, I created a ton of different stroke weights with really only 5 pens, and that's largely due to the amount of pressure that I put on each pen. Pressure is a crucial thing for all calligraphers because the amount of pressure that you're putting on the pen is going to give you a varying stroke width, and that's what makes calligraphy beautiful. For this next part, I want to show you guys real calligraphy versus faux calligraphy. Now, I know I said in the beginning of this video that I am not a pro calligrapher, and I definitely mean that, but I am going to give it a go. So on the left side of this page, I am going to do the alphabet in my attempt at real calligraphy. It's definitely not gonna look the best, but I'm gonna try and show you it so that you can compare my faux calligraphy to real calligraphy and hopefully see that there's really not that big of a difference. To start, I'm going to just draw lines across the entire spread and then do each uppercase and lowercase letter. As you can see, when I'm doing my real calligraphy, I'm using pressure on the downstrokes and lifting up the pressure on the upstrokes. And a key aspect that all calligraphers will tell you is you never want to lift your pen when you're writing letters. And this is because it'll make your words look effortless and smooth. This real calligraphy is taking me a long time and quite a bit of concentration because it's not my preferred way of doing calligraphy. And I'm not sure I like the outcome of this real calligraphy because I am not a trained calligrapher, and so a lot of my letters look fairly wonky. I've finished my real calligraphy alphabet, and although it looks okay, I'm not really that happy with it, and it also took me a ton of time, and I had to use an expensive brush to create it. So now we're gonna move on to the right page, where I will also be using an alphabet to show you guys my faux calligraphy technique. The secret to my faux calligraphy technique is to essentially fake the boldness that you would get with a more expensive pen and by becoming a professional calligrapher. which I don't really have time for. I'm going to basically draw each letter in a traditional cursive way and then add extra boldness to the side of the letter where the downstroke would be. Once you add that boldness, nobody is going to be able to tell the difference between your calligraphy and a pro calligrapher's. You can see as I'm doing this that most of the time the downstroke is going to be on the left side of your letter. An exception would probably be a D or an L where there's really only one vertical line, and in that case, that vertical line becomes your downstroke, and that's where you're going to add extra boldness. For curvier letters like D and O and Q, what I do is I stress the left side of that curve. You're basically going to add extra boldness to the left side of each of those letters, but instead of adding extra boldness in a very straight way, it's going to be slightly curved along the inside of that letter. So now you can see I finished both the real calligraphy alphabet and my faux calligraphy alphabet, and you can see that there really isn't that big of a difference. And one of the things I love about using faux calligraphy is you can actually make it your own, because the cursive is going to look like your very own cursive. So wherever you're adding extra boldness to the downstroke, it's going to kind of take on a life of its own. From watching several calligraphy videos, the letters often differ from person to person and from calligrapher to calligrapher. So I want to show you guys the varying ways you can draw each letter and pretty much prove that there isn't really one right way to draw any letter. So for the S, there's several ways you can incorporate little curlicues, or the last way you can write the S is without any curlicues and sharp angles. For the M's, you can choose to use curlicues at the beginning or no curlicues at all. And the last M, you can choose to not put any curvature in any of the endpoints, so it's a more geometric M. For T's, I showed you both the uppercase and lowercase t's in the previous real versus faux calligraphy alphabets. So now I'm going to show you other variations of the T. So here, the lowercase t is if your word starts with T but is not capitalized, you don't have to include the little curvature at the beginning. There are so many different ways to write the letter H because there are so many opportunities for little curlicues. And by curlicues, I mean the little loops that you see at the endpoints of each letter. You can include curlicues in the beginning or even throughout the H, or not include them at all. As you can see in this last H, I didn't include any curlicues. Writing the D is pretty simple. There's really only two options. You can include a curlicue at the top of the D's endpoint or not include a curlicue at all. The Y is also pretty simple in its variation. You can include a little squiggly at the top of the endpoint of the Y if it's connected to another letter, or you don't need to include any curlicues or squigglies at all. Those are only some of the variations for a few of the letters. I'd say that every letter in the alphabet has several different variations that you can use in your own bullet journal. So feel free to kind of play with those, check them out, and see which one you like best. The very last thing I'm going to do is write the word calligraphy using the 5 different pens that I showed you at the very beginning of the video. This is a great way to show you how using different pens actually impact the overall look of the word. Hopefully you'll like one pen over the other and know that that's the pen you want to use for your own faux calligraphy. All of these pens will work for faux calligraphy, but the Tombow brush pen's opacity is a little bit different than the others, so you're gonna find that you're gonna need to go over the word several times just to make sure that the opacity is even throughout the entire word. I hope this video left you inspired to try using this faux calligraphy in your own bullet journal and show you that you don't need to make any extra trips to the store or spend extra money on supplies. You can use markers you already have to make your own faux calligraphy. My personal favorite pen to use for all of my faux calligraphy is the Faber-Castell 1.5, but I'm curious to know what all of y'all's favorite pens are, so comment below. And as always, make sure you subscribe to 17's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any of our future bullet journaling tips and tricks. See you next week.